amazing community. I love this place. I miss this place when I'm not here.
We miss you too.
But I'm here now. So let's not start getting weird. But you know, if you really like me being here, pay attention, because I'm only going to be here for the fire walk in July. I get back August 3rd. I know. How did that happen? So, but it seems to be the way it's supposed to be right now, so we're going to be good with it. Thank you. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all people, all people are created equal. We are all endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. That among these are life, liberty, which means freedom, and the last one. When I start editing, it gets weird. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, of course. Unalienable. Unalienable means you can't take them away. They can't be separated from you. Unalienable right to life. That's a promise. And when Jefferson wrote that to King George, he wasn't just talking about people that lived in 13 colonies in North America. He was saying all people. You know, he wasn't really clear probably about the all people, but all men he was saying, and even that he was working on. And it took us a while to evolve to the fullest expression of that. But today, we know that's what it means. All people have the right to life. All people have the right to freedom. And all people have the right not to be happy, but to pursue happiness. Some people may not want to be happy, and that's their right too. I know, it sounds silly, but it's true. Those are the three things that started this country. 237 years ago on, Wednesday, Thursday, whenever the 4th falls, I guess it's Thursday, ratified by the Continental Congress in Philadelphia, they said, okay, let's go. Let's do this thing. Put their lives on the line to do that. Yes. And it's kind of worked out nicely. Now, you may not agree with everything that goes on in this country. If anybody's a thinker, they're not going to agree with everything anyway. So let's not worry about creating a utopia where we all have it exactly the way we want it. But for an experiment of social consciousness, this is working out pretty well. We are certainly the most prosperous country collectively on the planet. For the size that we are, for the things that we do, sure we grapple with things. Absolutely, we should grapple with things. We should work together to find our way. This process after the Declaration, we had to have a system of government. So other men got together and created this thing and called it the Constitution. It's a map for how to do government. When they were done, people said, wait a minute, you left out the freedom part. So they went back and they created some stuff. And we keep going back from time to time and looking at them. I just want to share the first 10. The first 10. They're about freedom to practice whatever religion you want. Powerful idea that was not around before that. Countries go to war over that issue. We can practice whatever spiritual faith we choose in this country. Doesn't mean everybody likes it, but that's the law. Freedom to say whatever we want, so long as it's not screaming fire in a crowded theater. Freedom to write whatever we want, as long as it's not libelous. Freedom to assemble peacefully. As long as you're not planning the overthrow of the government. That wouldn't be peaceful, would it? And freedom to petition the government. To say, government, you need to look at doing this different. That's the first one. That's the First Amendment. The Second Amendment is freedom to keep and bear arms. Now, some of you may disagree with that. But at some level, that's the way it was designed. And we work with that to make that work. Freedom to own and control property is the third. The Fourth Amendment, protection against unreasonable search and seizures, which is the right to your own space. And the government can't overtake that. Fifth one, guaranteed to due legal process. If you are accused of a crime, you have the right to go through a legal process. The Sixth Amendment, right to a speedy and public trial. The seventh, right to trial by jury. Eighth, freedom from cruel and unusual punishment. I think we're still trying to figure that one out. Ninth Amendment, rights of the government do not diminish the rights of the people. I love that. The government is not more important than us. That's in the Constitution. And the 10th one, a guarantee of states' rights, which has its place. You'll notice in none of those does it say the right or freedom of thought. Why would that be? Because no government anywhere has ever learned how to control our thinking. No one can control our thinking. We are in charge of what we think. We are in charge of how we perceive our lives. We are the ones that create our destiny, not a government, not a Congress, not a parliament, not a king, not an emperor, not a president. We control our experience. I love that. And we're evolving as a people. And I think that's the most wonderful, amazing thing. I'm going in August to Geneva to a conference, and I was asked to bring some of my books, 5 Steps to Freedom. And I just happened to pick it up last week and read part of it. And I start off talking about being an American. And I thought, oh, how's that going to play in Switzerland? But you know what? I don't care. That's who I am. That's how I think. And one of the things about being an American is that we prize and hold sacred this idea of freedom. Actually more than we do the idea of safety and security. Now, we've been challenged with that in the last decade. You know, I heard someone say yesterday that the attack on the towers in New York City was the Pearl Harbor of our generation. I thought, wow, you know, I hadn't thought of it that way, but maybe that was. You know, and it asks us to look, what is the most important thing? And still, when they survey Americans, we say freedom is more important, the most important. Not true in Europe, not true in many parts of Asia. They want security and safety first. But we're willing to risk our safety to make sure that we're free. What a great idea. What a wonderful way to be in the world. Now, is that evolving and changing? No doubt it is. But we're learning and we're growing and we're expanding our consciousness around these kinds of ideas. The idea of freedom as a basic premise for living is central to who we are in the science of mind. The very first page of our textbook has these words on it. The inherent nature of man is forever seeking to express itself in terms of freedom. Ernest Holmes began this exploration of how mind works with the idea of freedom. What does it mean to be free? Well, we've got these laws. We've got these organizational documents that we base our government and our culture and our society on. But that's not the freedom that is essential to us. The freedom that is essential to us is our ability to live our lives and to know who we are. The freedom to be who we have come here to be. The freedom to express ourselves into life in a way that is productive and meaningful. And I'd love to tell you that I always do that. I'd love to know that you always do that. But frankly, that's not the case. I thought of doing a little word thing and telling you it's everybody else out there that has a problem with this, but it isn't. It's us. It's us because we are the ones that have the limiting thoughts that restrict us. We are the ones that fall into dilemmas that we don't know how to get out of. We're the ones that feel trapped, confused, afraid. And that's okay. Because we are always, always, always at choice to change those thoughts. I love the fact that we are the ones that can make this happen to the depths of our beings. Now, there's good reason not to do that, not to play those limiting games, because what happens is, if we are playing a limiting game, we are stressing ourselves out. And we live in a culture where there's plenty of stress. Would you not agree? I see it in my life, and I'm sure that many of us feel that the stress of things we have to do, of deadlines, of promises, of all the things that we say are important to us, it stresses us out. Well, we know that's not good for us, but let's see, what are they called? The European Heart Journal just confirmed that people who claim that they have stress in their lives are actually twice more likely, 200% more likely to have a heart attack. Well, not really a surprise to us, because we know that our life outpictures out of how we express ourselves. And stress is a self-induced condition. We choose stress because we've got a conflict that we are not willing to resolve. We are lost in it. And I, as much as anybody, can point out and say something outside of me is controlling me. I've done it. I've seen it. I've been in that spot. And so has everyone else in this room played that game, is somehow thinking the problem's out there. The problem's with the police officer, or the doctor, or the lawyer, or whoever else it is that we give our power away to. We give them our power, and then we feel incomplete. We feel stressed. We feel lost. And we go through that whole thing. But the truth is that we don't have to play the game that way. That's not the way it's designed. We have this innate ability to change our direction. And Dr. Holmes gives us a look at that. And it's going to be up there in a second. It goes like this. Limitation is the result of an ignorant use of the law. Every advance in any science proves this to be true. The real law is one of freedom. By that freedom, we bind ourselves until we learn how to change the thought, and by so doing, to change the limitation into freedom. The two are merely different uses of the one law. What that means is that there is only one law. It takes the impress of our thought and it turns it into our reality. So when we worry, what are we going to get? We're going to get the thing we're worried about. But when we set that down and we focus on the thing, not the desire of the thing we want, but the thing that we want, the circumstance, the situation that we desire, when we focus upon it, then we bring that into our life. The law doesn't care. The law doesn't care whether we have a limiting thought or an expansive thought. The law responds to how we're thinking. So when we have the limiting thought and we fall into it, we have the most wonderful staff at this center. And Nancy, who's working with the kids today, is our new administrator. And this thing happened this week where one of our computers just started really acting up and crashing and falling apart and all of this. And they're looking at it going, it's dead. We got to get another computer. And for what everyone was observing, that was true. Barbara has a hard time with this. So she took that computer into her office and plugged it into the internet and downloaded some patches and things from Microsoft, and God knows where those things come from. Don't ask me to do this. Put the computer back on the desk. It's running fine. You'd have thought Brian was over here. It's working fine. But we all do that. We look at the effect and we go, that's the problem. It's so easy. It's so natural. But could we have another thought? Could we, out of another thought, create another result? And that's just a little one. The big ones in life, the big ones that call to us are so big and so powerful and can be so overwhelming. But how do we want to look at it? How do we want to deal with it? Those of you that were here last week heard that I've kind of been going through what is not a big surprise, that being in the position of president of our movement has its challenges. Am I creating those? Absolutely. I'm co-creating them with all the people around me. And those that are struggling and challenged by me, and I by them, seem to want to point at each other. But the greater truth is that we're each creating our own experience. That's how it works. So something I learned a few years ago was when I'm in some grappling situation and I'm not sure quite how to work it out, let me talk to somebody who worked out something bigger than me. You ever heard of Viktor Frankl? Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist that ended up in the concentration camps of the Nazis. If you don't know about this man, he wrote a little book called Men's Search for Meaning. There's some really good stuff in here. And I want to give you a couple little pieces to chew on, because maybe somebody in the room is grappling with something. Somehow think somebody outside of them is doing something to them that's making their life hard. Listen to this story. I remember a personal experience, almost in tears from pain. I had terrible sores on my feet from wearing torn shoes. I limped a few kilometers with our long column of men from the camp to the work site. Very cold, bitter winds struck us. I kept thinking of the endless little problems of our miserable life. What would we be eating that night? If a piece of sausage came as extra ration, should I exchange it for a piece of bread? Should I trade my last cigarette, which was left from the bonus I received a fortnight ago, for a bowl of soup? How could I get a piece of wire to replace the fragment which served as one of my shoelaces? Would I get to our work site in time to join my usual working party, or would I have to join another, which might have a brutal foreman? What could I do to get on good terms with the capo, who could help me obtain work in the camp instead of undertaking this horribly long daily march? I became disgusted with the state of affairs which compelled me daily and hourly to think of only such trivial things. I forced my thoughts to turn to another subject. Suddenly I saw myself standing on the platform of a well-lit, warm, and pleasant lecture room. In front of me sat an attentive audience of comfortable, upholstered seats. I was giving a lecture on the psychology of the concentration camp. All that oppressed me at that moment became objective, seen and described from the remote viewpoint of science. By this method, I succeeded somehow in rising above the situation, above the sufferings of the moment, and I observed them as if they had already happened in the past. Both I and my troubles became the object of an interesting psychoscientific study. What does Spinoza say in his Ethics? Emotion, which is suffering, ceases to be suffering as soon as we form a clear and precise picture of it. So anybody got that kind of problem that this guy was going through? No. Any of us can turn around any situation by objectifying it and separating ourselves from it. We can't be hurt. There's nothing in life that can hurt us. Yeah, but you don't know what I'm going through. You know, I'm not in a concentration camp. I got this really hard thing going on in my life. Let me give you another little quickie from Viktor Frankl. Whenever one is comforted by the incapable, unavoidable situation, when one has to face a fate that cannot be changed, an incurable disease such as an inoperable cancer, just then is one given a last chance to actualize the highest value, to fulfill the deepest meaning, the meaning of suffering. For what matters above all in the attitude we take towards suffering, the attitude in which we take our suffering upon ourselves. The story he tells here is of a colleague whose wife died. His beloved, his life partner, had died 2 years earlier, and he was still grieving every day. And he went to Victor and said, I don't know what to do. And Victor asked him a very simple question. What if you had died first and your wife was here? And he said, oh, it would have been really hard on her. I do so much of what we do together. I take care of so many things. She would have been lost. It would have been terrible for her. And he said, so there's some kind of blessing in the fact that she left before you. The man was stunned. He got it. That God was in the midst of all that, and that miraculous, wonderful plan, as hard as it was on him, had prevented his wife from having to go through something even harder. And he left at peace. Isn't that amazing? If we will just look at where we are and find the meaning in it. Except that we are never asked to do something we can't do. We may not know how to do it, but there's never a situation that we can't do. We are free. We are absolutely, completely free to live our lives according to our understanding. The question is, how much understanding are we willing to have? How much love are we willing to embrace? How much light can we actually handle in our lives? That's our choice. Now, around a place like this, I believe we can handle a lot. We spend a lot of time around here lifting one another up. I tell you, I got some great gifts over here just a few minutes ago. Yeah. We're doing a wonderful thing as a spiritual community. We are doing wonderful things as individuals. We're making this a better world. There's a phrase from Jesus. Remember him, Yeshua, Nazareth? He said something really simple. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. The truth is the presence of the demise of the point of view. You and the Father are one. That's the truth. And when you live in that knowing, nothing can contain you. That cage is always open. That cage is only locked in your thinking. You are never confined to anything. No government in the world can control your thinking except you. So how do you want to play the game? What do you want to do? Do you want to be free? I keep saying I do, and I keep falling in the trap, but I keep finding my way out. I invite you to find your way out. So whatever it is that's going on that you think is so bad in your life that you're not willing to see the way out, remember who you are. Read a little book by Viktor Frankl or something else that touches you in a way that helps this work for you. And I'm going to keep going off and doing what I do and keep coming back here until I'm done with this. And I'll miss you when I'm gone. But I want you to know what you're doing here is important to me. It's important to our movement, and it's important to the world. We are on the cutting edge of evolving into the fullest expression of God on planet Earth. Thank you for who you are. I love you very much.